to CES 2020. I'm Jason Hiner, and with me is David Katzmaier to talk about the best TVs of CES. And there was some big news, so let's get right into it. So we've looked at a lot of stuff, a lot of TVs. You've seen them all. You saw a lot of them before CES. David, let's talk about where TVs are going and what was what were the ones that turned your head this year?
Yeah, so CES is the launching point for all the rest of the TVs that are going to be on sale in 2020, but it's a big show and it's all about the show, and it's really the really flashy TVs that were the most impressive, starting with Samsung's The Wall once again. These guys brought it with a 292-inch television.
I mean, you look like an ant next to that thing. And I was telling people he's 6'4". Like,
yeah, it's really, really big. It's a technology called micro LED. It's kind of like a scoreboard, at a sporting venue, basically. It's a bunch of LEDs, much smaller LEDs.
Yeah, you can see it right behind us, on our wall here. It looks really good.
Yeah, they're packing them in, and they can get this gigantic. Of course, it's really, really expensive, multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars, not going on sale, anytime soon at normal prices, but, a glimpse of what TV could be.
So this is still a TV show. There's a lot more things here than ever before, but this show, the heart of the show is still TVs, and the heart of the show is still the biggest booth is Samsung, and then you have LG and Sony also. What were some of the other ones that got you excited? The Wall grabbed all the headlines, but there's some other ones that are really interesting for other reasons.
Yeah, so to talk about LG, for example.
Yes.
So these guys make OLED TVs, the best picture quality you can have right now. That micro LED is really good, but it's a little bit in the future. This is talking about OLED is on the market right now. They brought their rollable OLED again. So this is a TV that rolls down, disappears into a cabinet, and is completely invisible. It's basically furniture until you want to watch it. Then it rolls back up, and it's a 65-inch beautiful OLED TV. So we found out the price at the show. It's $60,000, around there. They haven't finalized it yet, but they told me this. So, really just for a rich guy with a view that doesn't want it obscured by his TV.
Because you can buy the same essentially screen for $2,000.
Yes.
Right? It just doesn't roll.
Right. So you can buy 30 regular TVs, 65-inch OLEDs, or you can buy one rollable one. So, you make the decision.
But it does give us a peek at what the future of TVs could do, and when they won't all cost $60,000, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and speaking of the future, so LG is LG Electronics. They're the guys that sell it. They're the ones everybody knows. There's also a company called LG Display, sister company that makes all the OLEDs for everybody, including Sony, now Vizio, all these guys. We'll get to that in a little bit. So LG Display has a booth with some really cool concept stuff. The one that everybody knew about before the show is a roll-down version.
Yes.
So it's like a movie screen that just kind of rolls down, and it's a regular TV, and then it rolls back up. And then they showed us like this concept car with all these OLED displays on it, and another one, the backseat passenger screen, the little TV screen. Usually they're these screens back there behind the seats. This one rolls up and disappears behind the seat. So the kids are done watching the show, it just disappears.
So these TVs are really interesting, these rollable OLEDs, because they could blend into more surfaces more transparently in the future, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, so you get this thought of like, where are you going to use this crazy technology? And those are some pretty good, places where it's going to be, actually relevant to be able to roll up a TV. And again, this is future stuff. LG Display, this stuff is concept. It's not going on the market anytime soon, or at least this year. So it's just cool to see it.
It can be more interesting because instead of these big black mirrors on our walls when the TVs are off, these things could either blend into the wall, or the way Samsung has done, they could turn into these, have more persistent images up there, artwork or calendars or other things.
Instead of a blank space, you have, your art. They have this thing called the frame. You subscribe to it. But, the most interesting Samsung TV we saw, we went to Korea. You and I saw it earlier. So it's the Sero. What do you think about the Sero, Jason?
The Sero. So this is definitely the TV for the YouTube generation or the TikTok generation, maybe, because 40% of all videos are now shot in vertical mode, and this thing does this little deal where when you flip it, it swivels, right? So it's kind of like the millennial or Gen Z TV. I think it's an interesting concept. What I think is most interesting about it is that we know the viewing habits of younger viewers are much different. They are watching a lot of their content on their phones. A lot of it comes from YouTube and social media. So this is like, okay, we're going to let you still do that, but here's a better screen to do it on.
Yeah, and
There's some problems with it, maybe,
you
though.
can see them like scrolling on the thing because it mirrors your phone too.
Yeah.
So you have this kind of like, oh, there's my phone, except it's bigger. It's like, oh, it's I called it like, you know, the most expensive phone accessory you're going to get, you know. And that's what we're talking about, the price. So it's on sale in Korea now for the equivalent of about $1,600. Samsung hasn't announced the price yet.
Yeah.
So let's step back a minute. This is a 43-inch TV for $1,600, maybe $1,500, whatever they come out at. That's not cheap.
What could you buy it's a QLED TV, 43-inch
Yes.
QLED, 4K.
4K, yep.
What could you buy one like that for a Q60 or something, 43-inch?
Those are, you know, around $350, $400. You can get another like a TCL for like $230, 43-inch TV. So, you know, it's not there for the value. I mean, I did a little bit of math, right?
Yeah.
So you can buy a 75-inch TV for $1,400, right? A little bit less than the Sero, 75-inch TV.
Yeah.
If you watch a portrait mode video on a 75-inch TV, it's exactly the same size as the
43.
Sero turned into portrait mode. So you might, you know, take your choice. Are you going to buy a 75-inch TV or this 43-inch TV that goes? So I don't know. It's an interesting product, but we'll see how well it sells.
That's some good math. My math on it was you could get two for like, you know, $600. You could get two $300 TVs, 43-inch, and put one this way and one that way.
There you go.
And just stream.
use one for your phone mirroring and one to watch TV at the same time. Yeah, nice.
Exactly. Very good. So what else, anything else from in the TV space that really is interesting, or home entertainment in general? Obviously, you run that whole category for CNET.
Right.
So what else is interesting?
So we haven't talked about Vizio. They're a huge TV manufacturer, number 3 in the US, and they actually came to CES and brought all their 2020 stuff as well. The most interesting thing that they did was launch an OLED TV.
Yeah.
So we're talking about OLED before with LG and LG Display. This is the first time in 2020 that we're going to get additional brands making OLED TVs that aren't LG and Sony. So Vizio's the biggest and the most important because these guys have reduced pricing on TVs year after year after year. They have very good video quality for the money. They have a range of TV technologies they've been doing a long time very well. And for them to get into the OLED space and compete with LG, to me, says price drop.
Yeah.
You know, so again, pricing isn't final on these things, but just having that extra competition of a brand like Vizio is really cool for a TV buyer who's looking and wondering why these LG TVs, these OLEDs, are not getting less expensive. Maybe the competition will change that.
Yeah, and Katz, you've said consistently OLED is the best screen you can get, so that being cheaper is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of the best, we got to talk about 8K.
Yeah.
There's an 8K bezel-less from Samsung that we saw in Korea at the end of last year. I have to admit that when I saw that bezel-less TV in the 8K and they had like sports, you know, shot in 8K, it ruined me on every other screen that I've seen because it looks so amazing on the wall, and when you see that content with that high contrast. Yeah. I mean, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and we've talked about, you know, the disappearing of the television. This thing has this super thin bezel, so it does look like it's all picture. And, you know, my take on 8K right now is don't buy it. Yeah. So I think Samsung is actually reacting to people's sort of weariness with that thing. And the fact that 8K is a lot more expensive. It's a little early still. 8K sales projections are not, you know, seen to be taking off as quickly as 4K did, for example. So guys like Samsung are saying, well, what can we do to make this technology more exciting? Well, let's do something with design, you know, and make the 8K kind of the step-up model, the resolution, not the first story. The first story is this amazing bezel and the other technology they're putting into it. 8K is, you know, coming, you know, very slowly, and there's no 8K content right now. There's 8K video game consoles coming out a little bit later this year. We know about that with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, but you know, in general, it's a little bit down the road, and they're still really expensive. So we'll see.
But boy, they do look great. When we saw that 8K bezel-less playing like a soccer match, there's no blur as they move, because that was a good sample because they move really quickly, and as they move, you don't see any blur. Like you watch the ball, you can track the ball going across. Whereas normally, even on really good TVs today, you know, those things are just, it just
Yeah,
essentially
good
looks.
content can do that, and you know, once we get to the point where you're getting like 60 frame per second content with 8K, which is again pretty far down the road,
Yeah.
you're going to see those kinds of, you know, smooth motion and stuff that looks much more realistic. So it's great. I hope it comes, you know, relatively quickly, but there's a lot of stuff in the way, you know, before that happens. We don't even have real 4K broadcasts yet, for example. So
Yeah. So you mentioned the Vizio OLED.
Yes.
But you also were pretty interested in a Vizio Sound Bar
Yeah.
that was here. Tell us about that and why was that so interesting? Because a sound bar, you think on the surface, you think, oh, you just hook it up and it plays sound. What was so interesting?
So, you know, sound bars are one of these technologies that's not super whiz-bang at CES, but what they did is so sound bars have Dolby Atmos compatibility, which to work best requires upward firing speakers. These things actually have speakers that fire up, but then when it's not listening to Atmos, which is most of the time, they pivot forward. So they call it the elevate. The idea is you can utilize those drivers in a way where you can augment the stereo sound. It works great for music. I heard a demo sounded really good. And then you can pivot them up to get the atmospherics of Atmos. So there's a motor that's actually doing something useful.
Oh.
Yeah, cool sound bar. So yeah, that was our favorite sound bar of the year.
Okay. Anything else in the home entertainment space that got you excited here at CES?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like, for example, this is a strange one, but we're talking about OLED before. LG and Sony finally are going to be putting out an OLED that's smaller than 55 inches. So this is a 48-inch, first time we've screened the screen size. OLEDs have gone up as high as 88 inches. But to get them down, you know, if you're a high-end guy, you don't have all the space for whatever the reason in a smaller space, the 48-inch size is pretty cool. A lot of TV manufacturers are doing a lot of gaming, for example, and improving the gaming. It's really big, again, with those consoles coming out, but also variable refresh rate, taking advantage of a lot of the gaming technology out there now. They're more and more improving that by adding these features. So, you know, these are the trends that we're going to be seeing in more of these mainstream TVs this year, which is what, you know, I'm more excited about as a TV reviewer, to go out and play with the newer technologies and figure out, you know, how they tick.
So we talked about the Vizio OLED and them getting into the OLED market, which is a big deal because it's likely to drive down the cost. But there were a couple other companies that also announced that they're getting into OLED here.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about those?
So Vizio was the most important. That's a new OLED brand. There's a couple guys from China, Konka, which is actually, they're on sale in Australia, a few other places around the world. They've actually previously been in the US for a little bit, but they're going to have an OLED TV, you know, again, probably manufactured most definitely by LG Display, but it's got their brand on it. And same for Skyworth, which is another big brand in China. They made a big splash earlier in the week talking about how they're going to come to market in the US with not only a OLED TV, but also an 8K TV. So this is the trend of Chinese TV manufacturers. Take it back a notch. The company that we mentioned a little bit, one of my favorite TVs in general this year was made by TCL. And that's a Chinese company that's, you know, gigantic, and they have rocketed over the last couple years into the number 2 market share, or sorry, yeah, they're the number 2 in the US now. Right there, Samsung's number 1, TCL and Vizio, so they kind of vaulted into second place in terms of, you know, units sold. A lot of it is inexpensive TVs, sure, but it's mostly based on their Roku operating system, and this is a super popular brand now, and now they're expanding into higher-end TVs that I think are more recommendable. My Editor's Choice TV last year was a TCL Roku TV with very local dimming that performed great and cost, you know, $800 for the 65-inch size, so it's a great television. So those Chinese manufacturers, Hisense is another one that gained a lot of share last year. They're going to be entering into the market even more and even more strongly and taking share from traditional brands like Vizio and even Samsung. And, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how they get into it.
Well, it's never been a better time to get a really great TV at a really great price. You've reviewed a lot of these. You know, you really do a lot of consumer advocacy in your review. You know, you're trying to think about the average person buying these things, not necessarily just the tech enthusiasts. We write for that audience too. But people can go to CNET.com and read our lists of the best TVs.
Yep.
And obviously, all the ones that are here, you'll be reviewing them throughout the year as well.
And more, you know, there's going to be more announcements later in the year, and we'll be excited to check them out and test them side by side. We have our little test lab that we can sit down and look at them over a longer period of time. So, you know, check it out. We're going to be doing videos and everything like that too, so it's great.
Fantastic. All right, thanks, Katz. Thanks for watching. Next up, we have Motorola here with their new foldable Razr. Stay with us.